Welcome to another episode of Pels in the Blender. I'm A. Davis. I have Mr. David Grubb joining the show today. How you doing today, Mr. Grubb?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh man, I appreciate you joining. And first off, I want to say shout out to you and Propels and everybody and all of the fantastic work you do. Shout out to the bird rights. I saw you put out an article today also about like the finances and everything. And you you've always I'm gonna kind of just jump right in, so if you don't mind, but
Mhm.
you've always throughout your career, whether it was writing or covering this team, you've always been pretty straightforward about how it is you've covered this team. And the local media specifically does not have a great relationship, seems like, um from the how do you look at it? From like the fans perspective, it feels like the fans kind of think the local media is kind of bullied and kind of pushed around by the team. You don't really have that reputation though. How have you built your reputation and everything on following the Pelicans and how you cover the Pelicans?
I think, like you said, consistency is the most important thing, and I've always been consistent in how I presented myself. Just like anybody, I had to learn some things when I first started about how you conduct yourself and what's the respectful tone and how you get your answers, even by asking to difficult questions. And I think you also have to learn is that sometimes a non-answer is an answer.
Mm,
That you have to start learning how to read between the lines when people answer your questions as they choose to. And I think some of that comes from my background in politics. I worked a lot in politics, and I understood from all the levels of communication. I worked in advertising as well, in public relations. So I mean,
wow.
I learned that what people say, what they don't say, how they control, like I may ask the question, but I'm not in control of what the answer is. So I don't,
Mm,
I've learned, like, just to go where the questions take me, to be consistent in my approach. And I think that everybody understands that no matter what I do, my critiques are fair. Like, you can
okay,
disagree with them. You can disagree with them, and people are allowed to do
absolutely.
that. I don't care if they disagree. But you're never going to be able to say that there's not a basis for my criticism. You could disagree with the conclusion, but you can't disagree with the fact that I got information and reasons to back up my opinion.
Absolutely. It feels like between your writing and your commentary, even because I'm real big on like listening to the interviews and the questions and everything. And even when you ask the questions, you're very objective in the types of questions that you ask. So when you talk about being fair, if it seems like also you're a professional communicator as well. And like the more you get to know these people, you know what I mean, on a personal level. I don't know necessarily on a personal level if there is. What matter of fact, that's a good way to go. Is there a difference between like the personal and professional in covering this team?
I would say, like, one of the examples I give is dealing with players' families. Okay,
Mm,
so I have and a lot of reporters, we have a good relationship with Trey Murphy's dad. Like,
mm-hmm.
he is a very outgoing man, very intelligent, obviously a coach himself, and has been done a great job in shaping who Trey is as a player and as a young man. He and his wife both. His parents are fantastic people. But I've had his dad, and I've had to criticize Trey sometimes. Like, you just,
Mm-hmm.
that's the nature of the beast. But every time that I've done that, he'll come up to me when I see him, before a game or something like that, and he'll be like, "Hey, you asked Trey some difficult questions last night, but they were fair." He's like, "I can't be
Mm,
for asking, fair questions." So I think, if you're going to go out of your way, and I think it's important to build relationships, because
mm,
people think it's all about what you do tell. A lot of times, again, the information that you get from players, from coaches, from family members, for the people who are true insiders. And I don't consider myself that deep inside, pause, of the organization. But I certainly, I know what I know. And I've had times where I felt like I've had good, accurate inside information. But Sometimes it's just not for you to tell because it's pointing you in the right direction. It's a breadcrumb that you need to ask the question of the people that can tell you on the record,
Mm,
or to look for this thing, that you are looking for in the next game. So, those are the things that you utilize. And I think those relationships are important because those people have to be able to trust you, that if they communicate with you and say, hey, this is off the record, that they know that you're going to keep it off the record, that you're not going to leave them out there hanging to dry, that you're not going to use them for information. There's a difference between
mhm,
sharing and using people. You know what I'm saying? Like, people will give you information. They
absolutely.
want you to know what's really going on most times. But it's how do you use that? And are you exploiting that relationship, or are you using it to collaborate and do the best job for the fans?
Great. And I appreciate being able to lay that out first, because as we continue into this particular episode, I want to dive into a kind of critical topic right now with Willie Green. And realistically, I want to go into, is Willie kind of getting a fair shake with everything that's going on? Because I mean, let's just be honest, like, and this is my personal opinion. I think Willie Green is a less than average head coach in the NFL. Not saying NFL, I'm sorry, in the NBA. He's not maybe the worst coach in the NBA, but by no means do I think he's one of the better coaches, and that's being at a deficit. Now, to Willie Green's defense, you can lean to, okay, injuries and roster construction and a couple other things that Willie Green will probably say, hey, if I would have had X, Y, and Z, our results may have been different. But you've always been in plenty of your episodes, and you're right, you've always been extensive and factual with everything that you've said. So based on the information that we have, and we'll kind of go into it a little bit, but do you think Willie Green is getting a fair shake by people saying, hey man, we need to get Willie Green out of here? Not your words necessarily, but do we think that that's a appropriate reaction from the fan base?
I mean, fair is a hard word in sports, right?
Mm,
Or in life. It's just, what is fair? We talking about a league where some NBA champion coaches got fired last season in the middle of their season, didn't even get allowed to finish them.
mm,
The facts are this, okay? Like, take away all the variables that are working against Willie Green from the external, like you said, the injuries, roster construction flaws, those things persist, okay? We'll take those out of the equation. Where does Willie Green give you an advantage as head coach, right? Every
mm,
coach, as you said, the majority of coaches are mediocre, just like in any job, right? The majority of people are going to be average to below average at the job. There's very few
mm,
people who are exceptional. But most times in life, you can get along just fine with middle management, with people who are mediocre as managers, because you ain't
yeah,
really try, like, the overall things of the company is not necessarily counted every day and put on a big scoreboard, wins and losses. So as
mm-hmm,
long as the money is made, nobody cares. And everybody's making money in the NBA. But there's wins
absolutely.
and losses that are being tallied, right? And so
Mm-hmm,
that part of it, the criticism that comes along with winning and losing is fair. You've seen better coaches than Willie Green have shorter tenures. You've seen worse coaches
mm,
than Willie Green have longer tenures. There's no such thing as fair. And the great Bomani Jones has said this plenty of times. You can make a case to fire anybody in the world on any day if you want to. You can make a case to fire them. But my question for Willie Green is this: where does he give you an advantage? Is it schematically? Is he an offensive wizard? Is he a defensive guru? No, he's not either of those. Is he his number one strength was supposed to be his ability to communicate? Is his relationship with Trey Murphy great? Is his relationship with Zion Williamson great? Was his relationship with Brandon Ingram great? Was his relation,
oof,
like, who are the players that are at the top of the food chain
yep,
outside of Herb Jones that he's had a great relationship with? So that has not gone well. And then you'd say, are you a consistent motivator of your team? This is a team that's only had three, five winning streaks of at least 5 games in his 4 years.
yep,
In his 4 years, he also has the longest road losing streak in franchise history. He
yep,
has five of the top I think 8 worst losses in franchise history. He has the most 40-point losses in franchise history, the most
Almost
30-point
30
losses in
points.
franchise history, the most 20-point losses in franchise history. He has the longest in-season losing, like the most
10
double-digit
game
losing
losing
streaks in
streaks.
franchise history. He can't win at home. He's below 500 at home. He's not great on the road, even though they set the record, the franchise record for 28, with 28 wins 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, especially against the East, he has a losing
Mm.
record overall against the Eastern Conference, which is the lesser of the two conferences, and you have to be above 500 against the East. So
Oof.
you've been bad against the East. You've never gotten higher than 8th in the conference standings because the win totals don't matter. It's relative to what the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
conference is doing, and you've never been higher than 8th. So to me, and in a league where the vast majority of champions, their head coaches win it within 4 years or less.
Yep.
Like, you only have a couple of coaches out there in the last 20 years that went beyond year 4 to win their first title. So all the things
Mm.
point to the fact that Willie Green is not going to be the guy to lead the Pelicans to a championship. Maybe he does that somewhere else. Maybe he figures it out. But it doesn't seem, based on history with that you've seen with Willie Green and history of the NBA, that he's going to be the coach to solve this problem.
The numbers scream at you. And I've done this research as well. So like when you start rattling off all of the losses, all of the extensive losing and stuff like that, right? It seems like it would be obvious. Now, Willie Green's counter would be, well, hey, I got the injuries and stuff like that, but I've made the playoffs in two out of the actual playoffs in two out of my, well, it not starting this season yet, but 2 out of my 4 years, and the play in 3 years out of the four. And 1 year they were completely injury riddled. Would a fair argument for Will, not, and again, we know about fair, but would that pushback being able for Willie to be able to say, well, with all of that, because Joe Dumars said in one of his interviews, and I found this to be very interesting. And I do not think that Joe Dumars wants to keep Willie, to be honest. That's just my opinion. I think he's just waiting, to say I gave him the opportunity and be able to go get his own guy. He's good for bringing in his own people. But I think that he wants to give Willie an opportunity because he says specifically, it don't matter to me how you win. You just need to win. Like we don't have, and he was, referencing, we don't have to shoot 43s. We don't have
Right.
to, so all of that I'm okay with. But Willie Green will say, well, with all of that being said, I've still made the playoffs 2 times, and I've, been in the play-in 3 times in my 4 years. And then, I've had the injury riddled season. Is that enough to save Willie in this particular season or going forward at all?
Not to me, because you don't just look at the results, you look at how you got there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the first year you were 36 and 46. 36 and 46.
We
You
started
get
off
into the
2 and
play-in.
12 or something like that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like I think they start, yeah, I think it was worse than that. Like when you go to
Yeah.
like the 20-25 game stretch, but you win 36 games, you get in at the 10 spot because the teams in front of you didn't want to get in because they were like, I
Mm-hmm.
want the lottery pick. So they didn't want to get in. They were
Mm.
already out. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
then you end up with this. You get into the playoffs. Oh, we won 2 games against the Suns. Devin Booker didn't play.
Nope.
Devin Booker didn't play. If
Yep.
that's the team that went to the finals, if Devin Booker plays, you're done. We don't even get close in that series. You know what I'm
Very
saying? Like
true.
you got mauled in the front court that entire series. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Like
DeAndre Ayton was shooting,
JaVale
looked like
McGee killed
80% from the field too, felt like.
everybody. Bismack Biyombo went off in that
Mm-hmm.
series. They had no chance because they couldn't stop anybody on the inside. Okay, then you go to the next season. You go 42 and 40. You're at home in the fourth quarter against Oklahoma City. You are beating them. You
Getting
are
killed by
beating them
Lou
in the fourth
Dort.
quarter. And they drive to the bucket, straight lines over and over again. You sit Jonas Valanciunas on the bench for almost the entire fourth quarter. You don't even let him take a shot. He takes one shot. It was a 3, and he made it. That was the
Yep.
only shot he took in that quarter. But the rest of that game, you just blew it. You couldn't adjust defensively to stop Shea driving straight line to the bucket. You couldn't figure
Mm.
anything out offensively to get anybody a shot. Then you talk about the other playoff season, you get 49, you go against that same Oklahoma City team, and they
Mm-hmm.
drag you, and you put up the worst offensive 4-game series in the last 25 years. So, like, what? And then you add on the top that you wasted Trey Murphy's rookie year. He averaged 5 points a game
Absolutely.
as a rookie. You wasted his first year because you didn't want to play him. Didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
play. You gave Jordan Hawkins more minutes than you gave Trey Murphy as a
Very
rookie.
true.
You know what I'm saying? So you wasted a year of his development. You still couldn't figure out in year 2 or year 3 for Trey what to do with him. And he's giving you 29-point games, 30-point games, and you still couldn't figure out what to do with him. You've never figured out what to do offensively when you've been preaching point 5 since the first
Mm.
season. You've been talking about point 5
Point five.
mentality, and his
Yep.
team has never finished in the top 10 in pace. So, and based on the players you have on the court, and he said it himself, they are best in transition, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't trap, they don't press, they don't pick up 94 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, they got lucky because Herb Jones is the best free safety in the NBA. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Herb Jones is the Ed Reed of that defense, and he covered up so many mistakes for them. And you got really better than what they want to say about Jonas. And I think that's a big part of it too. His inability to understand how Jonas was effective and taking him out of games at the wrong times. All those things to me
Mm-hmm.
are reasons not to keep Willie Green. Like, you have burned through so many things. When you brought in veteran players who showed really early that they weren't capable of playing in your rotation, but you kept giving them minutes, whether
Garrett
it was Tony
Temple.
Snell or where it's Garrett Temple or whether it
Mm-hmm.
was Devontae Graham, when you were giving
Yep.
Devontae minutes and he was showing you
Refused to
clearly
bench
he
him.
was not contributing. So those are all things to me that if I go in with I don't care what the final season win total is. If I'm looking at the process, are
Mm-hmm.
the Pelicans as a team, do they have an identity? No. What are they offensively? What is New Orleans Pelicans basketball? You tell me, because it's defined by who's playing that night. And that's a problem because Golden State is Golden State Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Boston is Boston 7 days a week. They play the exact same way. The Knicks play the same way every night. The
Mm-hmm.
Pelicans play based on who's on the floor. And that is not how this is supposed to work.
Absolutely. I think people that really watch the team, and I'm not talking like, and sometimes even the casual fan can see this. You know what I mean? All of the finer details of what's missing. Like, if you watch the team every day, you can tell, man, well, yesterday we was a 3-point shooting team. This particular game, we're a perimeter oriented, but we're not shooting threes. Like, you can tell if you watch the games, consistently, that the team does not have an identity. You made a very good point when you mentioned JV and him not knowing why JV was so effective and constantly pulling JV out of games, when realistically JV defensively was not as bad as people made him out to be. And to be honest, not that he wasn't a rim deterrent by any means, but he also allowed between him and Larry, those two were able to allow the teams to kind of help stop some of that, as far as like people attacking the rim consistently. They were able to help. And I don't exactly know how necessarily, but obviously Willie ain't figured it out yet either,
And
because he was pulling Jonas for extensive minutes. Go ahead.
he limited, like, Jonas was such a good defensive rebounder. Like,
Mm-hmm.
limited ending possessions. Look how much the Pelicans have struggled. Last year, they were one of the worst defensive teams rebounding teams in the NBA. They were one of the worst defensive teams too, but a large part of that was because they gave up so many second shot opportunities. When
Very
Jonas was on the
true.
floor, that didn't happen. You don't just go around that dude. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Mm.
teams had to deal with that physicality, and he could wear on another center. No, he wasn't a 35-minute per game guy, but you knew that when he got there, that he was a
Mm.
25-minute per game guy. It's just that Willie was picking the wrong minutes. Like, you played him in the first
Mm.
half, and then you wouldn't play him in the third quarter coming out of it. How many times was he not on the bench? How many times was he on the bench to start the third quarter? How many times was he on the bench to close? And the Pelicans were the worst closing team in the NBA, and yet you continued to keep Jonas on the bench in the fourth quarter.
Mm.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
I completely agree. I'm sitting there looking at it now, and you talking about the consistent flaws of like just decision making. That's the one we're looking at, decision making. So I had a couple things that the Pelicans struggle with, and looking forward, because I essentially want to find out if, because there's been a history of teams that turn it around. Like if you look at the Western Conference and even the Eastern Conference, if you look at teams that make the playoffs, there's about 2 or 3 teams each year that didn't make the playoffs the year before that'll make the playoffs, right? So if you go back, like this year in particular, Golden State, I think it was Golden State and the Grizzlies
Mhm.
made the playoffs this season as teams that didn't make it the year before. Before that, it like even in the East, you had the Pistons, one of the worst teams in the league, to come in and like outright make the playoffs. So it's able to be done for teams to be able to turn it around and make the playoffs. But what I have is we have, as a Pelicans team, a couple things that we have to overcome in order to be able to make it. One is slow, like this team has to get off to a fast start. Like if you've mentioned the stat numerous times, there have never been a season that the Pelicans that started less than 500 in the
Just
first
one.
10 games.
Just one. The 36 and 46
Okay,
season is the only
the
one.
only time. Exactly. So realistic, if you don't start at least 500 in the first 10 games, you're not going to make the playoffs. So you have to get off to a fast start. The other one is we've never been good coming out of halftime. Like we have slow starts, and then they might figure it out, and you know, we may take a lead, or and there's times where we'll have a big lead going into the half, and then the third quarter, just like that, we give that up. And our last thing is sustaining leads and finishing games. If there was one thing that we could do this season to help push towards being able to be one of those teams that transition from one of the worst to making the playoffs, which one of those things do you think would be something that we could, that Willie can tangibly do, that would help us achieve a playoff spot this season?
Well, I think a lot of those are tied together in his adjustments. I think you see the teams see whatever the Pelicans are doing in the first half, and then they know that they're going to continue to do the same things, and that's fine. Like again, like I said, most teams do the same things, but the way the Pelicans do it is too simple. There's not enough movement involved. There's not enough different guys touching the basketball on a possession. How many times do you see possessions for the Pelicans, no matter who's on the court, no matter who's on the court, where 2 guys or fewer touch the basketball on a possession? Like that
At least
basketball has,
70% of the time.
you know what I'm saying? Like Antonio Daniels has said this more times than anybody could count. The ball has energy in it. When it's moving, when players are moving, that's how you win games. I mean, like, how do you think Indiana gets open like the way they do? Is because they're moving. Yeah, you have a great point guard at the helm, and we could talk about that, but um, your offense, the identity of the offense for the Pacers is again when even when Therese Halliburton is off the floor, they still run it. You know what I'm saying? Like they're
Absolutely.
still running, and guys know their spots. They know which shots they're supposed to take. They know when they're supposed to take them. When you watch, you know, like whatever happens with the Knicks and the players that they've had on their roster, they played the same way, and that's part of the reason that their coach is no longer there, is because he can only master one side. The reason Tom Thibodeau is there is because defensively the Knicks weren't great last year, but
Yeah.
offensively they were even worse because they were so predictable. So you put everything on your individual players, and this is a criticism that Brandon gave the Pelicans. It's a criticism
Mm-hmm.
that DeJounte Murray has made public. And if you watch the way that they've used Zion Williamson and compare it to what was done when Stan Van Gundy was running the offense,
Mm-hmm.
and look at what compare that to what how Willie Green runs it, it's 2 very different situations for Zion Williamson in those cases, and I think the teams just learn to adjust, and they come out in the second half, and they continue to do what they do. They continue to run. They continue to get their spacing, but the Pelicans get frustrated because it doesn't work. They see it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work, and you start giving less effort on the other end because you're like, it don't matter what we do on this end, we ain't gonna score on the other
Back then.
end.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
And
Yeah, so that just turns the whole thing into a mess.
let me ask this question, because I was talking to Five yesterday, and Five made a very good point, and I want to emphasize this too as well, is because I Willie calls himself Willie was brought in. You asked what is Willie's, strong suit? Like, what is he supposed to do? And he's supposed to be like a defensive anchor, a defensive specialist, and stuff like that. Okay, whatever. Because in my opinion, the defense has been flawed the last couple years. At you know what I mean. Even though sometimes we've ranked top, I think we've been ranked as high as 6 one time, in the season for defense and everything like that. But again, even in that season, if you watch closely, the defense was flawed. But again, like you said, you had JB, and we just did a really good job of rebounding. Herb Jones was all world, stuff like that. Dice and Najee, Jose, guys that take pride in playing on that end, and it went well. But the schematics of it all were absolutely flawed. But Five said that, because I put it on like the other coaches as well, right? Like, if there's an adjustment to be made, is it not 8 people sitting on the sideline that's professional NBA coaches that can't say, hey, bro, they're denying this man, can we run another action? And he simply said, hey, he refuses to listen. He refuses to listen. So in my opinion, even with this particular season and everything that's going on, and your job's on the line this year, should we expect him to continue on that path?
Yeah, like lepers don't change their spots, right? Like,
easy, yes.
part of
It's
being a head coach,
yes.
the other part of this is being a great administrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because every great head coach that you think about, their assistants too. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you think about the
Mm-hmm.
great coaches in this league, when Doc Rivers won his championship, they were talking about Tom Thibodeau
Tom
then,
Thibodeau.
right? They said
Mm-hmm.
Thibodeau changed the defense, changed the whole thing. Assistant coach. Go back to Phil Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
right? Tex Winter is the guy that's
Mm-hmm.
associated with Phil Jackson, the inventor of the triangle. Johnny Kerr.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you knew those guys. You knew them. When
But
it's
Steve
Pat
Kerr
Riley,
got
you knew
what?
he
Yeah.
had the Van Gundy brothers next to
Mm-hmm.
him at different times. And those guys became head coaches because they were sitting next to Pat Riley. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, every great coach that you've seen, Steve Kerr, how many of his assistants have been hired? Greg Popovich, how many of his assistants have been hired?
Mm-hmm.
When you go down these lists of these head coaches, you know their assistants. Because, as you said, their assistants are influential. Willie has either had assistants that you don't know, or he's had ones that have come in like a James Borrego, who was brought in specifically to do one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's worked in 2 other places, but it
Mm.
doesn't work in New Orleans.
Why is that?
Like, what?
Yeah.
James Borrego didn't change,
Yeah.
right? So what is he running into? And I think that there for Willie Green, I think stubbornness. And I think there's a difference between having your convictions. Every head coach should have convictions. You're not going to sit here and say that guys like Bill Belichick or Sean Payton or
Mm-hmm.
Bill Parcells or Jimmy Johnson in football or whatever, Pat Riley, Phil Jack, they don't have principles. They got principles,
Very
but
strong-minded
what you
people.
have to be is flexible, because the
Mm-hmm.
smartest people understand they don't know everything, and that you surround yourself with people who are as smart or smarter than you are. You are judged by the company you keep, right? So let your company do what they do.
Mm.
You handle the big picture. You make sure the minutes are right. You make sure that their practices are run effectively. You make sure the heartbeat of the team is where it's supposed to be. Let your assistants coach, man.
The
Let your
best part of
assistants
being
coach.
a CEO is being able to delegate and delegate problems. Because when things go wrong, you know what you can do. You can point to somebody else being like, to be honest, he's not even protecting himself. You can typically point to somebody else and say, hey, it was that guy. He runs the offense. It was that guy. He runs the defense. And again, you have that. What do you do? But when you try to do it all, then that blame falls squarely on you.
It's the same thing with all those coaches we just talked about. Every one of them is also, you don't think about them as the creator of anything.
Mm-mm.
Greg Popovich, do you think of him as an innovative person when it comes to play
Nope.
calling or whatever? No. When
Personnel
he
management.
picked, he picked the people. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? And he held it all together. That's a job in itself. You know what I'm saying? Even with Pat Riley, you go from Showtime with the Lakers, you go to slow down with the Knicks and with Miami, but then adjusting again when you get Dwayne Wade and Shaq, and changing your offense again. So it's not as consistent. Phil Jackson is associated with the triangle because that wasn't his offense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That was
Come
Tech's winners offense. So your
come in and teach
principles
him the
again,
triangle.
right? So it's like the head coach is the guy who sets the tone. If you're not, because most of the winning head coaches, because Mike D'Antoni never won nothing. He had he's an offensive guru, but he had never
Mm-hmm.
won nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Kerr, do you think of Steve Kerr as a genius as
Mm-hmm.
far as his X's and O's? He's not
Mm-hmm.
dumb. I'm not saying that,
No,
but
I get what you're saying.
you know what I'm saying? Like none
Yeah.
of these guys are considered innovators in what they brought to the game. None of them. They are great managers of men and getting people in the right spots to do their jobs and getting them to be motivated day in and day out to be professional and committed to one goal. That's the most important thing. And Willie Green has failed at that too.
So with that being said, I don't think you listen, we gotta adjust this or something because I was very excited coming into this season. And the more you talk to people, because I really like what and you've been talking about this on your episodes too, your post up shows, and every time you get on y'all do the episodes with Propels about how the starting five is a competitive starting five. That starting five can compete with pretty much anybody. I'm also kind of big on the not necessarily big, but I think the bench will be a little bit better this year, specifically because I think it's a different type of bench than Willie's used to having. So I think he won't have some of the same. And again, I can't say he won't have because somebody's that
Willie
stubborn
Green.
as people exactly might find a way to try to minimize some of the roster moves that have been put in place to kind of help him get out of his own way, if that makes sense. But the more I'm talking to people about it, I'm like, man, I don't know if we really should, because I'm on record of saying I think we are a playoff team. Like if they can stay healthy, if we can get the luck of health, and that's the biggest thing for this team, I think the talent is going to carry to being like a top 6 seed, in my opinion. So with that being said, this Willie Green thing is really a problem. It's really a real problem. And how many games do you think it takes for Joe Dumars to either get the okay, get the blessing from upstairs? Because I cannot imagine that he's going to allow, for example, I don't think he's going to allow him to
Season to get
trade.
away.
No.
Mm-mm.
Like there's no way they start off. Example, they're 3-6, and it looks like a bad 3-6 because if they have some of that residue from last season and you're losing by 20 with everybody here but DeJounte, there's no
Especially to
excuse for
start.
that.
Like especially the start of
Absolutely.
games, if you just getting taken out early and it's
Yeah.
non-competitive. Um, I think that the team that you're looking at, if you want a full rebound, I think if everything goes right, because I think you always have to be realistic. I think that you
Mm-hmm.
look at Memphis and they got 21 games better from the year before, a year where they
Yep.
were really injured and everybody came back, right? And you would say
Mm-hmm.
roster to roster, that Memphis team last year is still probably deeper than this year's Pelicans team, right?
Mm-hmm.
They improved by 21 games. They got to 43 wins, I believe, 43 wins.
I think the
I think
loss of
that's
Bane
about,
hurts them.
but I mean, certainly I
But
think it does.
yeah.
But I mean, last year they improved by 21 games.
Mm-hmm.
They got healthy, and that's how much better they got. I think that's, if you're the Pelicans, I think that's a realistic number, which would put you at 42. Put you at
Mm-hmm.
42 wins, which would be a winning record. And I think that ultimately that gets you into the chase of the play-in. Now, if they make a major move, they can maybe get better than that to address some of these concerns that I have with the bench. But I think if everything goes right this year, I think what
Mm-hmm.
Joe's goal is, I think what the goal is to prove that this team can be consistent and competitive this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then financially, you have a good chance to get off some bad money at the end of this season
Okay.
if you can package this right and get that last piece or pieces and then make a real push in the second season, because I think you have to look at it this way. You got 3 seasons left under Zion's contract
Mm-hmm.
after his extension was guaranteed in July 15th. You got the last season. If you ain't winning, you're trading him, right? Because he's
Yeah,
not signing the
absolutely.
extension with you if you're still not winning after year
No.
9. Then you've got year 9.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 years to figure this out. And I think this year's to prove that Zion can be healthy and can lead the team
Mm-hmm.
and see what pieces you got to fix with if DeJounte can come back, whatever, or if he can't. Or if you need to move on and get rid of some of these guys on the bench. If you need to extend a guy like Sadiq Bey, if he shows you that he's back from the knee injury. That's what this year is about figuring out. But your core, you figure you know what your core is. Poole ain't going nowhere. Herb ain't going nowhere. Trey's under contract. Zion's under contract. The
Mm-hmm.
rest of it, and you know that the 2 young guys aren't going anywhere anytime soon. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got 6 spots locked down. Throw Eves in the mix. That's 7 roster spots. The rest of that is uncertain because you can get off the Kevon Looney contract at the end of this year because that's a team option. You can trade Jordan Hawkins and he can move on. The rest of the bench is guys that you don't necessarily have to keep around. So if you find that your core works, you can reshape that bench this offseason after this regular season, and I think really put you in a position to put all your chips in the middle of the table and go for it.
That's a great way to look at it, to be honest, because I'm looking at this year because I looked at this year with the movement of the draft pick and them kind of signaling, hey, we're all in for the season. But being all in for the season doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go for the championship necessarily. You're just, like you said, you're signaling y'all in, and we're like, okay, this is a new version of the Zion era. You get what I mean? So you have,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you have the core tied together at a minimum of 3 seasons and beyond if you really want to, go beyond that. Because let's just be honest, if Zion has a great year this season, you could lock Zion down. Not saying that most people won't give him the extension, but if he has a great season and show the trajectory that we're talking about, that Joe Dumars thinks, you could lock him down and really go ahead and transform this thing. But I think, like, now that you mention it, if they have a solid season this season, and that doesn't necessarily mean, does that mean you have to make the playoffs?
Got to make the playoffs because you don't want to
Okay.
give up a lottery pick. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing is you don't want to do is give up make the trade turn into a lottery pick. So you
Mm-hmm.
got to make the playoffs. But even if you get swept in the first round, you weren't expecting to win a title this year. Like,
Okay.
not with Oklahoma City coming back the way that they're coming back, not with Minnesota being what they are. It would be look, the teams that do that kind of jump. We
Mm.
haven't seen that kind of jump since Larry Bird. You know what I'm saying? Since Larry Bird took the
The
Celtics to the
Celtics.
finals. I mean, he didn't even get them to the finals. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
they turned around. I think they're just like the second most of all time. But like when you look at the teams that at the highest part, when you talk about the teams just last year, but when you look NBA all time, the 5 biggest jumps,
Mm-hmm.
one of them is the Celtics. And that was the year they added Bird as a rookie, McHale as a rookie, and Robert Parrish was in his second year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Hall of Famers.
all in the same year. The next one is Phoenix. They had a Steve Nash and he won MVP that year.
The 60
So
win Suns team.
yeah, so like you added the
Mm-hmm.
MVP. The next 2 belong to the Spurs. One is they added Tim Duncan after David Robinson sat out a year with a bad back. So you got
Somehow
David
got number
Robinson back
one.
and Tim Duncan, and you had Sean Elliott, and you had all these other who that team had won 50 games the year before, and you
What a
get David
great
Robinson
coach.
back, right? And then the other one is the year that the Spurs added David Robinson after he was gone for 2 years on his naval stuff,
Military.
comes in
Yep.
in 89, wins rookie of the year, they jumped up 30 wins. And then the last one is the Celtics when they added KG and Ray Allen and won the title. So
Yeah.
if you want to be that kind of team, you got to add Hall of Famers or MVPs. The Pelicans are getting back good players, really
Mm-hmm.
good players, but you're not getting back an MVP. If Zion has an MVP year, all bets are off. You know what I'm saying? If
Okay.
he's playing that level, if he's scoring 28 a night and the Pelicans, all bets are off then. But I just think like if for Pelicans, that's where you want to keep your expectations reasonable. Go through
Mm-hmm.
the process this season, and the thing that you want to see is can the core work together? That's the thing you've been begging for 6 years, right? Is that you want to see the core healthy? This is the last chance for them to try to do it. If not, then you got to blow it up. You just got to.
Is it year 7 for Zion? Yeah,
7.
year 7. So
7.
I've been predicting and I'll go ahead and let you know this too. I've been predicting Zion is like second team All NBA 28 8-8 type season, which is why I'm so in line with saying that I think they make the playoffs and make that jump above most of the teams. If you line, and I've done an episode on this too, but if you line Zion up with all of the top players in the Western Conference, I didn't have him top 5, but not far after that. You got Shea, Joker, Luca,
Anthony
Shea, Joker,
Edwards.
Luca, and respectfully Ant, and then I think the other one I had that just was Kawhi. I think I had to put Kawhi in right there, just off resume and what he's done when he's healthy. But other than that, I personally had Zion consistently better, more impactful than Steph Curry because of the age, Kevin Durant because of the age. If year 7 Zion focus locked in with the pieces around him, because I think this core of players fit better around him than previous. I think you actually can see that maybe not the because OKC made a similar jump when Shea went to MVP level. And I don't think our roster is necessarily comparable to theirs, but what you saw was Jalen Williams take a major step in his game and Chet come along, you know what I mean, to be that third piece for them. You saw Anthony Edwards take his game to not necessarily MVP. Well, when that year when they were fighting for the 1 seed, I think Ant was in
He was top 5 MVP voting.
Yeah, in the MVP or something like that. Year 7 Zion, what we saw him ending the season last year in 28 minutes a game and how dominant that dude looked. If you can get a full season of that with Trey, hope, cross your fingers that he's healthy, and what I think Poole will be able to bring, and Herb back. Again, it makes me ask the Willie Green question, but I think the talent level alone, I think you can get an MVP level season from Zion, and that catapult. We saw that guy push this team, flaws and all, to the 1 seed at one point. Now he couldn't sustain and body broke down, but they were competing. They were at the 1 seed at the time of him getting injured and
Yeah, there
going on
was
that.
some flaws in that team, but
There's
there was
gonna
some
be
flaws. But,
absolutely, but he's the level of talent to where when he's going, he looks like one of the best players in the league.
oh yeah,
Can he get on one of those runs, help and be like dominant in the West? And if that's the case, you look at the Western Conference and you're like, I take my chances. I think we could, not saying that you win a title, but you absolutely look like one of the better teams during the season and be able to sustain that and get in.
I mean, I think baseline Zion is an all-star, right? Like if he just has a full season, he's an all-star. So MVP performances are not out of the question for him. I don't think that would be off the table. And I think you're right. There are very few players in the West. The biggest thing in the playoffs is, do you have that guy? Usually the best player in the series is the guy who wins the series. There was no doubt that Shea was the best player in the finals in every series that Oklahoma City played in, outside of that Denver series, where I think we'd still say Jokic is the best overall player in the league. But in that one, that's you going neck and neck, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you just the MVP with the previous MVPs. So like, okay, that's a heavyweight fight, and that was won by the depth of the Oklahoma City Thunder, as you talked about. So I think Zion is one of those few people. Zion is one of those few people that can win a series, that he can be the best guy in a series. So yeah, when you have that, you've got a puncher's chance. Most important thing for the Pelicans, and as we've seen in the playoffs the last couple of years, because of the injuries that do impact teams, it's going to be matchup. Who are you playing against? And so teams that are able to score inside, I think that's the Pelicans' kryptonite. Like if you got a team that has a really good interior presence, they're going to have a challenge with that. The Pelicans are going to be much better with teams that shoot a lot of jump shots. You know what I'm saying? Like, because then they get to get out and run. They're not tall. They're not going to block a ton of shots. But if the Pelicans can get out and run, create steals, they can be a problem for people. They got to be like a mini Oklahoma City, because Oklahoma City has the bigs in the back. You know what I'm saying? Like you got Chet, you got Hartenstein, you got Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, the light skinned one. So I mean, you got you got some bigs back there that can help. If the Pelicans, all the things you say is like, it's incumbent on so much going right. And that's the biggest part for the Pelicans, is like
No room for
nothing
error
in
at all.
anybody's season. There's nobody. Because when we look at champions, we always say, well, remember this point of adversity for that champion when they had to come up over this and over. There's something for everybody that you're going to go through. With the Pelicans, it always feels like if it's not perfect, it's going to be a problem. And so that's the part that gives me pause when I think about this season. It's just like I believe in the starters. I absolutely do. I absolutely do. You put that group together. I don't care if it's Looney or Messi. That's a good starting, as good a starting five as you can find. It is able to switch. It's able to do multiple things. It can shoot from the outside. It can get out in transition. I think it can defend in the half court. But that bench, there's not a single player on the bench that doesn't come with a major question mark.
Very
Like a
true.
major question mark. And that's the hard part.
So we'll kind of finish with this, and shout out to Mike, man. It's my boy. I didn't even know you was an Edna Carr alum. Shout out to you.
Original class, baby. Class
Yeah,
of 9 Trey.
What? I'm an Edna Carr alum too. So class of 07, man. Got to keep it in the family. Shout out to
My
y'all.
brother, my sister, all in the car alumni.
See, bro, that's a legacy right there. We out here dominating the.
You didn't see me in Algiers, America.
Man,
I've been in this
what?
movie twice.
I'm about to go back and rewatch it, man.
Yeah, I'm in the first and the second episodes.
Man,
yeah.
I'm going back. I'm gonna rewatch that today.
I think I'm the first person, like one of the first 2 or 3 people in the first episode.
Man, I'm going back and watch Algiers and America today. Shout out to those people covering those mighty Cougars, man. Second to none. Dominating the West Bank all the time. We're
greatest public school program in the history of New Orleans.
Absolutely, man. People be hating on us, but that's because they won't be us. Anyways, I'm gonna finish it up with this one. We're talking about the X factors, right? So, and they do come with question marks. And I think Joe Dumars doesn't, and a lot of people we don't want to, and you've been really great about kind of lowering the expectations for the rookies, right? You don't want to have to depend on them to have to be relied upon, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, that's the number 7 pick in the draft, and that's the number 13 pick in the draft with unique skill sets. They are lottery picks, and if they come out and perform, they could provide upside to this team that, hey, we may not know. And that doesn't say that they have to be the best versions of themselves. But for example, I don't think anyone off the bench, and this is, not a shot at Jose necessarily, but Jeremiah Fear's skill set is very different than what Jose brings to the team. Derek Queen's skill set is very different than anybody brings on the team. If those two players, and we've seen some teams like last year, you had Zach Edey come in and play a part for, for Memphis. Not saying that Derek Queen will look like Edey, but you've seen some rookies get minutes and be impactful. Can those two come off the bench and make an imprint on his team like a early Herb Jones? You know what I mean? Not saying you play to the level of Herb necessarily, but be as impactful as a Herb Jones, as Trey Murphy later on in the season, or players like that. Is there a possibility that we could have some gems that might provide a little spark and a little boost, battery pack to kind of keep this team going?
I think the difficult thing for Jeremiah Fears is he's got to have it the worst. And it's not because of the way the roster is built, it's because it's really hard to come in the NBA and play point guard. Especially when you it's the same as playing quarterback. It's about reps. Have you seen everything that the defenses are going to throw at you? Are you used to the real size, that you're going to have to deal with guards that like Lou Dort, that are basically
big, strong,
linebackers out there who could push you off your spot. Can you get to your spots offensively? Can you compete defensively? That's going to be a big challenge for him. And then when you think about, you do the rotation, you think at point guard, if Jordan Poole is starting, and I think like that has to be the starter, then you do your starting 5, and then whether it's Messi or Looney, you put them at 6. You know what I'm saying? You flick that 6. You figure Bay is 7, right? And Jose is 8, and he's gonna play 20 minutes a night because that's Willie's guy. Like you asking Willie Green to change? Like let's be real, Jose's gonna play every night as long as he's alive. He ain't hurt. Willie gonna play him. So that's 8 right there.
Hawkins.
You get to Hawkins makes 9. You know what I'm saying? So you're already at 9. Peavy plays defense. Willie
He's
loves
gonna play.
defense. So that's 10. Carlo, that's 11.
And we haven't
Right?
got the
Even if you
Queen and
take
Fierce.
Peavy out, we're still at 10. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're at 10 and you haven't played a rookie yet. You're at 10, you
And
ain't played a rookie
DeJounte.
yet.
Whenever
And you
DeJounte
have
gets back.
potentially DeJounte coming back. So I say this for Fears in particular. I think, again, the path for Queen is much shorter to getting minutes because of, as you said, the unique qualities of his skill set. The Pelicans don't have anybody else who does what he does. But with Fears, the two things that are going to keep him on the bench, well, 3. Number 1, turnovers. Can't have turnovers, especially when the margin for error is as thin as it's going to be for the Pelicans. Can't have 5 turnovers when he's on the court, and that's going to happen early on. He's going to turn up, like we just seen it. Whether it's Scoot Henderson, LaMelo Ball, show me a young point. Trey Young was like
Yeah.
leading, turnovers his rookie year.
Yeah, Ja was a big turnover guy.
So that's just a part of that job. So he's not going to play because of that. He's going to get beat up defensively. He's just not ready for NBA defense because it's hard. It's just difficult. And the third thing is he's not ready to shoot the ball from deep. So, like he didn't shoot it well in summer league. He didn't shoot it well in college. I don't think he's a bad shooter, but it's something that has to develop like it did for Alonzo Ball, but he's not 6'5", 6'6". He's 6'4", and he's not an exceptional leaper. Like he's not going to jump over people like Ja and dunk on people. So you got to give him the opportunity to fail. I think he's going to split a lot more time going to Birmingham and getting a chance to run the offense because that's what he's got to do eventually, right? This is the point guard of the future. He's not going to, when he's on the court, can you trust him to run the offense with the Pelicans? You can't yet. So that's an issue. But for when you look at Derek Queen, I can at least put him on the floor as a big and say, drive to the bucket, draw some fouls, take a couple of mid-range shots, get on the block, see if you can score. If he can't do those things, I can send him right back to the bench. But every night against a backup big, I can give Derek Queen a shot. I can give it a look because offensively, I've got to manufacture points, right? Again, that second unit, you don't have somebody who's going to take a lot of people off the dribble on your second unit.
That's
It's
very
not going to
true.
be Hawkins, not going to be Jose, not going to be Bay. So who's going to be taking people off the dribble? So you got to throw it into the one guy who can put his head down and get to the bucket on 2 dribbles. That's Derek Queen. So he's going to get his opportunities. But statistically, what are you looking at? Like, Evc gave you, 9 points a game last year?
Yeah, like
Go to
9 and
David
8.
West's rookie year. Go to Trey Murphy. Trey gave you 5 points a game as a rookie. Herb gave you 7. Like, so let's not put too much pressure on Derek Queen. If he gives you 9 or 10, okay. But it's what is his percentage from the floor? Like, is he shooting a high percentage from the floor? What his turnovers look like? And then does he give you that effort running up and down the floor? Because he's got to steal a couple of easy buckets in transition just by beating his man down the floor.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm hopeful for this particular season. And I still think we have Joe Dumars, to me, really raises my optimism. So hopefully he can come in and reestablish some things in the organization. And it seems like more so than the players. I feel like if they fired the coach right now, everybody that follows this team
Everybody, I think, would
closely,
add 5 wins.
yeah,
You'd add 5 wins.
absolutely. Absolutely. So which is insane. So Grubb, man, I appreciate you for coming out, man. Make sure everybody tune in, tapping in, follow Grubb on all his social medias, watch the post up, propels, follow the bird rights and everything. Again, I'm gonna keep tuning into y'all show, man. Y'all put out great content. I appreciate you coming on, showing some love.
Thank you. You got a new subscriber, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Well, that's going to do it for us today. This is going to be all for Pels in the Blender. May Davis, David Grubb. We out.